Born in 1861, Dr. Rudolf Steiner was a great Austrian polymath, philosopher and scientist who made influential contributions in the fields of education, science, spirituality and medicine. He is perhaps best known for pioneering the holistic educational methods for the Waldorf schools. An eloquent public speaker and gifted writer, he gave over 6,000 lectures in his lifetime and also gained recognition as a literary critic. His writings cover a wide range of subjects and he published more than 25 books, including Mysticism at the Dawn of the Modern Age, The Way of Initiation, and Intuitive Thinking as a Spiritual Path, The Philosophy of Freedom. He developed and taught an esoteric spiritual philosophy called anthroposophy based on the science of the spirit. Let us now share with you extract from the chapter The Higher Education of the Soul from his book The Way of Initiation, also known as How to Attain Knowledge of the Higher Worlds. The Higher Education of the Soul. One must not expect immeasurable glimpses of the higher worlds to open out before one from day to day, for assuredly, as a rule, this does not occur. Contentment with the smallest progress, repose, and tranquility must more and more possess the soul. It is conceivable, of course, that the learner may impatiently expect results, but he will attain nothing so long as he fails to master this impatience. Nor is it of any use to struggle against this impatience in the ordinary way, for then it will only become stronger than ever. It is thus that men deceive themselves, for in such a case it embeds itself all the more firmly in the depths of the soul. It is only by repeatedly surrendering oneself to a single definite thought and by making it absolutely one's own that anything is really attained. One should think, I must certainly do everything possible for the culture of soul and spirit, but I will work tranquilly until by higher powers I shall be found worthy of definite illumination. When this thought has become so powerful in a man that it is an actual trait of his character, he is treading the right path. This trait will then express itself even in external affairs. The gaze of the eye becomes tranquil, the movements of the body become sure, the resolutions defined, and all that we call nervous susceptibility gradually disappears. Rules that seem trifling and insignificant must be taken into account. For example, suppose that someone affronts us. Before we receive this occult education, we would have directed our resentment against the wrongdoer. There would have been an uprush of anger within us. But in such a case, the occult student will think to himself, an affront of this kind can make no difference to my worth, and whatever must be done to meet the affront, he accomplishes with calm and composure, not with passion. To him it is not a matter of how an affront is to be borne, but without hesitation he is led to ignore or punish the affront to his own person in exactly the same way as if it had been offered to another, in which case one has the right to resent or disregard it. It must always be remembered, however, that the occult training is perfected not by coarse external processes, but by subtle, silent alterations in the life of thought and emotion. Patience has an attractive while impatience has a repellent effect on the treasures of the higher knowledge. In the higher regions of being, nothing can be attained by haste and restlessness. Desire and longing for immediate results must be silenced, for these are qualities of the soul before which all higher knowledge recedes. However precious this knowledge may be accounted, one must not desire to anticipate the time of its coming, and furthermore, he who wishes to have it for his own sake alone will never attain it. It is absolutely demanded that one should be true to himself in his innermost soul. One must not there be deceived by anything. He must encounter face to face and with absolute truthfulness his own faults, failings, and unfitness. The moment you try to excuse to yourself any one of your weaknesses, you place an obstacle in the way which leads upward. There is one way only by which to get rid of such obstacles. Our faults and weaknesses can be removed only by self-illumination, and that is by correctly understanding them. All that is needed lies latent in the human soul and can be evoked. A man immediately improves his understanding and his reason when in repose he makes it clear to himself why he is weak in any respect.
Self-knowledge of this kind is naturally difficult, for the temptation to deceive oneself is immeasurably great.
He who is accustomed to be truthful with himself has opened the portals into a deeper insight. All curiosity must fall away from the student. He must wean himself as much as possible from inquiries into matters of which he wishes to know only for the gratification of his personal thirst for superficial information. He must ask himself only what things will assist him in the perfection of his innermost being for the service of the general evolution. Nevertheless, his delight in knowledge and his devotion to it must in no degree become relaxed. He must listen devoutly to all that contributes to such an end, and should seek every opportunity of doing so. For this interior culture, it is especially necessary that the desire life should be carefully educated. One must not become wholly destitute of desire, for if we are to accomplish something, it is necessary that we should desire it, and a desire will always be fulfilled if a certain special force is behind it. This particular force results from a right knowledge.
Do not desire at all until you know the true conditions of any sphere. That is one of the golden rules for the occult student. The wise man first ascertains the laws of the world, and then his desires become powers which realize themselves.
Let us consider an example in which the effect is evident. There are certainly many who would like to learn from their own intuition something about their life before birth. Such a desire is altogether aimless and leads to no result so long as the person in question has not acquired a knowledge of the laws that govern the nature of the eternal and a knowledge of them in their subtlest and most intimate character. But if he has actually acquired this knowledge and then wishes to pass onward, he is able to do so by his elevated and purified desire. Moreover, it is of no use to say to oneself, "Yes, I will forthwith examine my previous life and study with that aim in view." One must rather be ready to abandon such desire, to eliminate it altogether, and first of all learn without consideration of this aim.
One should cultivate devotion to knowledge without regard to desires. It is only then that one enters into possession of the desire which we are considering in a way that leads to its own fulfillment.
From one's anger or vexation arises an adverse condition in the spiritual world, so that those forces which would open the eyes of the soul are turned away. For example, if someone should annoy me, he sends forth a current into the world of the soul. So long as I allow myself to be annoyed, I cannot see this current. My own annoyance clouds it. But from this it must not be supposed that when I no longer feel annoyed, I will see the astral vision. To see an astral vision, it is indispensable that the eye of the soul should already be developed, but the capacity for sight of this kind is latent in everyone. And again, it is true that during the development, so long as one can be annoyed, the sight remains inactive. nor does it present itself immediately when one has overcome to a small extent this feeling of annoyance. One must continually persevere in the struggle with such a feeling and patiently make progress. Then, someday, he will find that this eye of the soul has become fully developed. Of course, annoyance is not the only quality with which we have to struggle before attaining this end.
If one person eats one vegan meal, it's one less animal that's being killed. Chef AJ, vegan.
Happy viewers! Thank you for joining us today for the Higher Education of the Soul from the Way of Initiation by Dr. Rudolf Steiner, Vegetarian, Part 1 of 2 on Words of Wisdom.